This video is brought to you by Sporlan, quality, integrity, and tradition.
Interesting this morning, we have a call on a beer walk-in. It actually came in yesterday, and the call is that the beer walk-in is too cold. It's freezing everything. They said when they got in here this morning it was like 28 degrees. What they did was they cycled power at that switch, which shuts off the evaporators and the temp control. So we're gonna turn that back on and get a ladder and see what the temp control says. I turned down the fans down below, so we're waiting for that to start. I wanted to give it a few minutes before we did anything, but I just came up onto the roof. Looks like we just came out of a defrost. Time seems to be accurate. It's right, I think it might be a little bit off. Let's see what time it is. It is 7:46, so yeah, it's not bad. It says 8 a.m. Good in there. Interesting, okay. I don't see anything crazy here. Let's come on over here. We've got 3 compressors, walk-in cooler, walk-in freezer, beer walk-in. It's running. Clear sight glass, which is typical. Rack. It's pretty dirty. Not like plugs, but the rack's dirty, that's for sure. Okay. Well, let's head downstairs and see what my thermometer says compared to the digital thermometer or the digital thermostat. So we have 2 evaporators. You've got a power switch that shuts off the fans and shuts off the power to the control, okay? And their complaint is that they're freezing the product. So the first thing that I'm gonna check is look at the thermostat, okay? So I come up here and I've had my thermometer in here for a few minutes. My thermometer says 34, their thermometer says 46. This control is not working right. Whether it's a sensor, whether it's the control, we'll have to open it up and see, but it's failed and it thinks that it's warmer than it is inside the box. While I was gone, I had Robert clean the rack for us. So now we got a clean rack. I had to go get the temp control anyway, so I'm gonna get back down there and get that thing changed out now. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and replace the entire control, but we are gonna put in a NEMA 4X control that has a little more water resistance to it. This one is not really meant for this, so you can have water intrusion on the back, and it's not even mounted with as much moisture as they get in this box. We're gonna do that, so I'm gonna swap it out real quick. So this new control, it's the same brand. It's a ETC control, still does all the same stuff, same multi-volt. It just happens to be a NEMA 4 enclosure, so it has the ears for the screws to go in, so it's much nicer. I love this control. Then you can just mount it to the wall right there, put a couple tech screws in it, and then mount the sensor. The one thing, this control that was in here is really, really old, and I can tell because it has the old school sensor. They haven't had a rigid sensor in a couple years. Theirs now are really flexible, and you can actually break the sensor. It's one thing I don't like. And I know everybody says, why not go to a KE2 or whatever? I just try to keep what it is. Try not to ruffle feathers, make it easier. Another thing to think about, on the previous control, they had 2 wires jammed into this terminal right here on the far right. And instead of doing that, just do a triple Wago. And it's much nicer, much less potential for a loose connection. You can actually tighten down on the wires like that. I went ahead and moved the sensor away from this bulb. I'm sure that was affecting it a little bit. Once the air got moving in here, I don't think it really affected it, but moved it away and actually put it in the return right here. So let's 1, 2, 3. Please don't blow up. See what happens here. It says 47. Let's go ahead and set it. 35 with a 3-degree differential. There we go. We are all set up. Now I'm going to put a thermometer up there and make sure it's accurate. This guy says about 36. My thermometer says about 36, about half a degree off. I'm happy with that. But I was sitting here thinking about it. I had it set for 35. We're not going to go that. We're gonna go to 36. There we go. We are good to go. I'm just gonna jump on the roof one last time, make sure that the sight glass is clear. I'm gonna turn it on right here. And then once we're good there, we'll be all done. All right, we are back and running. In our sight glass, we got a nice big Sportland seal right there. Nice and clear. So, because they were complaining about the box being too cold, I don't really see a need to apply service gauges. We found it was a bad temp control. There's nothing indicating to me that there's a refrigeration problem. So we're good to go. We are gonna give the customer the keys and tell them to keep an eye on it. So I got the temperature controller right here, and you know what I was talking about is this is not a NEMA 4 enclosure. It's really meant to be mounted, you know, somewhere where they're not gonna have moisture intrusion and different things like that. So will it work? Yes, this control has been installed for a very long time and it has worked. But when it becomes a problem, I try to put NEMA 4 enclosures in, and that's the ETC 141,000 is the NEMA 4 enclosure. So I'm not going to go and just change these just to change them, right? Because there's a lot of walk-ins that have these installed, but when given the opportunity, I'm going to go ahead and upgrade them and put a NEMA 4 enclosure in there. So this one right here doesn't look too bad. There's definitely some moisture intrusion because you can see rust build up on the transformer. Whether the problem was just in the sensor or in the control, I don't know. But like I said, since it wasn't the right model control to be installed in there anyways, I went ahead and got rid of it, put the NEMA 4, and the customer is happy.
So I'm not going to go into these restaurants and just start changing parts because I don't like what they are, right? But in this situation, we had a failed control. Now, it's possible that we could have changed just the sensor on this one, but I brought it to the customer's attention, and the customer agrees with me that, hey, you know what? It really wasn't the right control. It does have a bad sensor, but hey, let's take the opportunity. Let's go ahead and upgrade it to the right style of control. That's a NEMA 4 enclosure, and, you know, be done with it. And that's what we did. And again, I include the customer in these decisions so that way they understand why I do what I do. They get it, okay? Now, I'm going to say something right now, too. I'm going to go, you know, be honest that there's been times that I've had to install the ETC 111,000s. That's the original non-NEMA 4 enclosure. That's a very common control in a lot of reach-in coolers, walk-in freezers, walk-in coolers. I've seen them installed in all different applications. And like I said, even I have had to install them incorrectly in situations where they maybe shouldn't be. They are a very, very versatile control. And even when they're not installed in the, you know, the proper setting as far as the NEMA 4 versus non-NEMA 4 enclosures, they do last quite a while. But still, given the opportunity, I try to put the right control back in there. That way it operates better. It is actually rather difficult to find supply houses that stock the NEMA 4 ETC 141,000. So, you know, sometimes it's a Friday and you got to do what you got to do, and you just put in the control and, you know, it'll last a while. But like I said, I was there. We had an issue with the control, and we just changed it out. Now, let's talk about what made me go directly to the control. Well, first and foremost, when I walk into a walk-in cooler situation like this, where they're complaining that it's getting too cold, there's typically two things that could potentially cause that walk-in freezer to get too cold. Typically, in my setup, the way that this system is arranged, it either could have been the liquid line solenoid valve or an issue with the temperature controller, okay? The fact that the customer explained to me that, hey, you know what? When they shut off the box, it stopped freezing and it did okay. So what they were actually doing was cycling power all throughout the day previous, because it happened on a weekend. They put in the call, but they said don't come out till Monday. So they were just kind of cycling power, making it operate. So that tells me a lot, because if it was a stuck liquid line solenoid valve, turning off the power switch would have shut off power to the control, but the solenoid valve would continue to let refrigerant go through, and more than likely, with the fans off, the coil would have froze up. In this situation, when I walked up to it, the evaporator coil was not frozen up, right? When I turned on the switch, it took a second, then I heard the solenoid valve close, I heard the refrigerant flow through, and then I put my thermometer up there and noticed that the temperature controller was, you know, 10, 12 degrees off, thinking that it was warmer in the box than it was. Customer was saying they were maintaining about 25 degrees, 24 degrees in the box. Well, that makes sense if the temperature controller previous was set for like 35 degrees, 36 degrees, and it was 10 to 12 degrees off. Well, it was getting 10 to 12 degrees colder than it should be, okay? So there's a lot that goes in that maybe I don't capture on video. My brain and your brain is your best tool. When people ask you what's your favorite tool, what's the best tool that you have in your tool bag, it's your brain, right? And it's your ability to use common sense and experience to diagnose problems. So every step that I make in that restaurant, or actually, let's step back from the moment that I get the service call to the moment that I walk into the restaurant to the moment that I'm completed with the call, my brain is working. The moment I get the service call, I'm looking at it going, I'm looking at the customer's notes. I talk to the customer. They give me more feedback. And all of that adds into the diagnoses that I'm going to come up or perform, right? And essentially come up with the solution to the problem. And remember, when we're using the big picture diagnoses method, right, we are solving the problem and not the symptom. That's the whole point, right? The reason why I started talking about the big picture approach is simply because I was sick of having so many callbacks, and I was so sick of just assuming the first little thing that I found was the problem, changing a part and saying, you're good to go, and then getting a callback and then callback until I finally realized that it's more than just the initial problem that you see. You got to look at the big picture. Hopefully that makes sense for you. So as we're going through these videos, you know, as I make these videos, that's the whole point of them, right? They originally started from my employees. Obviously, I realized there was some value, made them available to the public. I am not perfect. In no way am I perfect. I never will be perfect, okay? But I just try my best, right? I make mistakes just like you do, right? I just happen to catch them on camera and try to use them as an example in hopes that maybe, just maybe, you'll think twice before you make the same mistakes that I have made. Again, thank you so very much for making it to the end of the video. If you haven't already, please check out my website, HVACRvideos.com. We have merchandise available, hats, beanies, sweatshirts, zip-up hoodies. We have all different types of hats, too. We have flat bill hats. We have dad hats that are like relaxed fit hats. We have this one, which is the flex fit hat. It's see-through, and it's very breathable. Black underbill on all my hats. That's really important because one thing that drives me nuts is when you'd get a hat and you'd wear it to work and it had that gray color, and then you'd go to move your hat in the middle of the day and your fingers are dirty and it just gets the bottom of the hat dirty. That just drove me bonkers, right? So when I went out to get hats designed, I made sure that I had black underbills. That was really important. And then the breathable material on this hat, this is the Flex Fit hat. It's just my favorite hat. I really do love this hat and wear it quite often. Again, they last a long time. You can throw them in the washer. So again, check out my website, hvacrvideos.com. Help support the channel. Other ways, if you're interested in supporting the channel, you can go to PayPal, Patreon, YouTube channel memberships. There's links in the show notes of this video. You can also go to TrueTechTools.com. If you go to TrueTechTools.com, they're a partner of mine. I purchase a lot of tools from them myself. They have a great website, very much catered towards the HVAC and building science community. Lots of great tools. But if you go to their website, you find something you like their pricing, you can use my offer code BIGPICTURE, one word. Okay, so BIGPICTURE, one word, at checkout. Put my offer code in there. On almost all the items on their website, you'll get an 8% discount on checkout, and when you do that, I get a small commission. Now, there's a few things on their website that it doesn't apply to, but for the most part, it applies to majority of the items, and when you do that, it helps to support the channel, okay? I really do appreciate you. Last but not least, really, the easiest way to support this channel is just watch the videos from beginning to end. Here you are, right? So thank you so very much. I really do appreciate you. And we will catch you on the next one. If you don't see another video from me, or if you don't see me on the HVAC Overtime show this Friday, Happy New Year to all of you, and we will catch you next year.